glycerin molecule. They call them triglycerides. So, so those are getting spilled over. And so I have had people with, you draw their blood. We used to draw the blood in the office, and then we'd spin it down and let it sit there. And the fat floats to the top. And sometimes there's a little layer of fat. And that's when people have a lot of fat. But I've seen people with like half of their blood is fat. Like the fat floats to the top and it's like half the blood volume.
Wow.
Um, and that's a really their triglyceride levels are in the thousands.
Wow.
And of course that's not healthy. But that's insulin resistance. It does
Yeah.
that. And so when you get high triglycerides, it's because of insulin resistance.
Yeah. So it was actually Jordan Peterson that I was listening to, and he was interviewing somebody, and yeah, they were talking about just obesity and how that often leads strong correlation with insulin resistance often. And what was the other thing they were talking about? You know, there are a lot of people out there that are really big into, say, carnivore diets or really strongly against vegan or vegetarian diets. And a lot of those discussions are because the way that our fruits and our vegetables, first of all, it's hard to get them without a lot of chemicals these days, I think.
Yeah.
And there's just I don't know, it's like this hot topic that I keep hearing about how maybe those vegetables aren't necessarily as good for you as we once thought. Why is that? Why are people talking about that, Dr. Saunders?
Because because there's a lot of people who are doing carnivore diets. Um, and they're saying that fruits and vegetables aren't good for you. It started with um, the plant paradox, where
Mm.
you have lectins that are dangerous, right? Are lectins really dangerous? Well, no, not really. When they're cooked, that's not an issue at all, and they're kind of important for telling your intestines what's coming down the pike, how to digest the food and stuff. So there's signals too, right? But yeah, if you were to eat a handful of raw red beans, uncooked, if you were to, it would kill you. The lectins in there are pretty dangerous and pretty poisonous. There's also a lectin called ricin from castor beans, and if you eat that, even a tiny amount, there's no antidote. You will die, and there's just nothing anybody can do about it. And so um, yeah, it can be quite toxic. So people started talking about how fruits and vegetables have issues with them, and
Mm.
because of our obsession with carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of people getting off carbohydrates. So, well, maybe that potato isn't the best choice.
Mhm.
Potatoes are supposed to be good for you, right? I don't know.
Um, I'm gonna select this here. There we go. I also thought it was really interesting too, because they were talking about, nobody is like sitting around watching a movie going, really craving some butter or
Yeah,
some steak. We don't crave those things. We crave sugar and carbs. And
right.
it's such a bummer and it's so frustrating. Although, fun little tip here. Have you seen the date and butter trend? If you have diabetes, you're not going to do this. But other people, maybe you're further along in your journey, you could try this. If you're looking for a healthier snack, there are a lot of people that take dates, put a slice of grass-fed butter in there, sprinkle a little salt on it, and it almost tastes like a caramel, actually. So if you're able to have sweet things, fun little tip there that you might enjoy.
Yeah.
Dates probably have a lot of sugar, though, really. I wonder how many carbs they actually have.
Yeah, dates have sucrose, and so the date butter idea is a terrible idea. It's ice cream essentially, and so gosh, ice cream is like the worst thing a human being could eat. There's nothing more toxic to your metabolism than ice cream.
Maybe
um,
donuts.
Donuts are pretty bad too. Gosh, they're right up there with ice cream
Good
easily.
glazed donuts just
Yeah,
gotta not be good.
yeah, no, they're not good at all. Um, so it's the sugar fat combination that's bad. And so me, I love chips, corn chips. And I always thought, man, they must be good for you because, like they said in Over the Hedge, nothing that tastes this good, well, anything that tastes this good has to be good for you,
Yeah.
right? I love corn chips, and you know what? I threw them away. I got rid of my corn chips.
Yeah.
It's just not a good combination.
Yeah.
And when I'm getting a belly, I know I've got insulin resistance, so I've got to get off anything that has sugar and fat together.
Yeah. We've become really a carb obsessed society, which is kind of a scary place to be. And, they were been talking about in the Middle East now, they're really starting to see just a big uptick in type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, and just in a lot of countries that didn't experience it as much as we used to. And it's not obese people. It's fat in places that you can't even see, that it's creating problems for people too. Heart problems. There's just so many things. It's like these hidden things that you wouldn't expect, people are starting to deal with, and it's because of our diets. And so that's why we're talking a lot about these things on these webinars. Um, okay, I think we got this rolling on YouTube. So we are on episode number 100. Nope, 279. And so exciting. That's just this webinar. We have another webinar that we do on Thursdays, but I want to make a quick announcement for all of you. We are going to combine those webinars. We are going to have one webinar per week. We are going to go through different topics each week. It'll be this webinar today, our Wednesday webinars that start at 1 p.m. Central Time. We're going to keep this webinar. I don't know exactly if we're going to change the name exactly. I don't know what we're going to do, but we will be talking about heart health. We will be talking about diabetes type 2. We will be talking about various other health topics. It's going to give us a little bit more freedom to mix things up. Many of you are on both webinars anyway, and so this will be easier for you. You can always go back and catch the replays on these, of course. But I'm really excited about this because we just have so many things to talk about, and uh we're not going to limit our topics either. We're going to talk about a lot of cool things. So Wednesdays at 1 p.m., that means our Thursday webinars will no longer be happening. Just so that you're aware, we will have our Home Cures That Work webinar tomorrow, so you can hop on that. But I'll be setting some things out probably through Zoom. I'll post some things on the Facebook page as well, just so that you guys are aware. I want to see what we have here for a couple comments before we get started. Anything about the things that we've been talking about. Lorelei, I love that name. What about gut bacteria that affects insulin? I just heard that gut bacteria is a huge issue.
Oh, it is a huge issue. And the way it affects insulin is that if you have like inflammation, if your gut bacteria isn't producing the short chain fatty acids that decrease inflammation, those short chain fatty acids actually make you more sensitive to insulin. And some of them are like acetic acid, which is a like vinegar. So people take like tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. We have the lean ACV, apple cider vinegar. Those are short chain fatty acids. Butyrate, butyric acid is another one, and they improve insulin sensitivity, and they decrease inflammation, and they allow the brain to work better too. So from your head to your toes, these bacteria that are making gut bacteria that are making these substances called short chain fatty acids are really good for us, and they're important. So when you're talking about gut bacteria, you got to feed them, and so yeah, when fruits and vegetables we were talking about, that's the prebiotics. That's the food for the bacteria in your large intestine.
It looks like we have a lot of new people on here. I might be wrong in that, but there are a lot of names that I don't recognize. So if you're here for the first time, will you say hello? I would just love to know that. Mark says he shared a study here in the chat that is about Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and how they can increase your blood sugar. Very interesting. So
Oh,
you guys want to check
interesting.
that out. Let me see.
It's Lorelai's first day.
Oh, it was. Way to be bold and ask a question right off the bat. That is awesome. I love it. Okay, Randy said my wife and I stopped drinking diet soda and sodas with sugar several years ago, but now we see the soda we drink has sucralose. Are there any substitutes that are safe or healthy?
Okay, here's the rule. If you have type 2, now this may not apply to everybody, but if you have type 2, the rule is avoid anything that tastes sweet. So, yes, sucralose, not good. Stevia, not good. The what are the other ones? Coconut sugar, uh, the agave nectar,
Yeah.
all those things that people say, oh, these are good for you, honey, maple syrup, they're all sucrose and they're half fructose and half glucose. The fructose causes the fatty liver disease, and the glucose raises your blood glucose level. So these are things that you should avoid. And then all of the artificial sweeteners have the taste of sweet, which when it hits the sweet taste buds in your intestines, tells your pancreas to make more insulin. So that makes you more insulin resistant because you're not adding sugar to that. So make sure that you avoid anything that tastes sweet. Remember, we had some guy on here who wrote into us and said, "You know what? I tried everything. I was on phase one of the diabetes solution kit for 6 months, and just things weren't working. It wasn't going down. And then I stopped chewing sugar-free gum, and everything came to normal again." It's like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's powerful.
Yep. True story. Lots of questions about ice cream. People want to know if they can have their ice cream. What about if it's made with coconut cream? What if it's homemade? Here's the thing. For one, if you have type 2 diabetes, if it tastes sweet,
It's out.
nah, not worth it. Not right away. That doesn't necessarily mean forever. I mean, forever would be better, but it's not worth it.
Yeah, and if it has fat and sugar together, like coconut ice cream, for example, it has coconut oil and sugar.
Mm.
Bad combination. Frosting, bad combination. Those are things you shouldn't. And so you think about it. Um, Ice cream is just frozen frosting.
Oh, no, yeah. Luckily my family, we're not big ice cream people anyway, and I really don't like frosting. But now that you just compared ice cream to frosting, I probably will never eat it again.
Oh, good.
Ooh. So thank you for that. Okay. Um, Abla. Hope I'm saying that right. Welcome. Mark's been here before, just been a while. Well, we are glad that you're back. Judy is here from Colorado. Lee Ann, hello, Oklahoma. Oh, lots of you. Bob, David. Who else? Stella from Iowa. I'm in South Dakota. Stella, welcome, neighbor. Um, Madison, Wisconsin. Randy, Will, Mexico. Rose uses Swerve. I want to say that's a stevia. Is that right? Is Swerve stevia?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. I can't remember. How about when you raise your own stevia? I've done that before too. If you're a diabetic, nope. Eric says, I can't figure out why my blood sugar continues to remain high. I'm on 3 diabetic meds and I'm still seeing numbers in the 200s when I wake up. My doc is putting me on Ozempic to try to get my numbers down. It's my first time here. Okay, you know what? Let's do this. First of all, I'm just going to mention that we have the diabetes solution kit. And this is what we mostly talk about on this webinar when we're talking about diabetes. This is written by the Barton team and Dr. Saunders. This is our solution to get your blood sugar numbers down. Okay. Under $20, you can get this at bartonwebinar.com. Use code webinar25, you'll save 25%, and I will post about that. That's for type 2 diabetes. Okay, so we talk a lot about that. We have a lot of webinars where we talk about that. Today, we're actually going to dig into a few of these things. We're going to talk about prediabetes, type 1 diabetes, and type 2, and what are the differences. Sometimes I'm amazed when I ask people, they say, yeah, I have diabetes, and then I say, what type of diabetes? And then they don't know. And so I think it's good for us to talk about it. I'm also sad that they have the same name, type 1 and type 2, because they're very different. But let's dig into this a little bit. Let's start with prediabetes. What is that, Dr. Saunders?
Okay, so prediabetes is specifically pre-type 2 diabetes. So it's not pre-type 1 diabetes, it's pre-type 2 diabetes. And that's a very important distinction as we'll talk about in a few minutes. So pre-diabetes means you're on the scale, like your hemoglobin A1C, your average blood sugar is already rising, and it's a little higher than you would expect it to be. But it's not quite at the diabetes level. So they have to draw a line to call it something, right? So they have to call diabetes, okay, let's define it. What does it mean? Well, it's not totally arbitrary, but it's kind of like people put in their ideas and they say, okay, let's say if your hemoglobin A1C is 6.5 or higher, then you have diabetes. And then so, well, what if it's 6.4? Well, then that's pre-diabetes. You're not actually at the line of diabetes yet, but you're almost there. So 6.4. What about 6.3? Where's that? Well, that's kind of pre-diabetes too. What about 6.2 or 6.0? Where do you draw a line for pre-diabetes? Well, let's look at the optimum place to be. So the optimum is to be between 5.0, well, 4.8 and 5.4. So just that range. If you get up to 5.7, that's considered pre-diabetes. But 5.6, what does that mean? Well, you're pre-diabetes. You're still on the high side. You're not in an optimum range. So 4.8 to 5.2, I would say that's optimal range. Why is that? Well, if you look at the difference in the death rate, just general death rate, accounting for age and all the other factors, if you just look at the diabetes part, the difference between 5.4 and 5.8 is double. If you have twice the death rate of 5.8 than you had at 5.4. So it's not just an arbitrary designation. These are actually important things. And 5.8 is not diabetes, it's pre-diabetes. And you can still see that it's not, that it's dangerous to have, to be pre-diabetic. So it's not something like some doctors will say, well, that's pre-diabetes, watch your sugar and good luck, see ya, and then that's all the advice they give. They don't say, wow, you know what, this is double the death rate of somebody with 5.4. So, it'd be really good for you to bring that down. And so let's talk about ways to bring that down. And so we have the diabetes solution kit, and that works for pre-diabetes. It's great for pre-diabetes. In fact, we've had a lot of people who come on who had prediabetes. They do phase 1, they go through the diabetes solution kit, they get on phase 1, and in a matter of a week or 2 weeks, they're already normal. Yeah. And then a couple of months later, they do their hemoglobin A1C, and it's normal, and it's 5.4 now. It's in the normal range. So we've had a lot of people report that. So pre-diabetes is pre-type 2 diabetes. It's just where are you on that scale?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, I think you've already told us what type 2 is. What is the range for type 2?
Well, that's just a test. Type 2 is 6.5 and higher. So that's the type 2. But to know what it is, type 2 diabetes is cellular, on the cellular level. That's each one of your 60 trillion cells in your body. Many of them store sugar. And so as you're eating sugar, then you're getting insulin is high, and insulin tells the cells to bring in more sugar. So they're bringing in sugar. They're bringing in sugar faster than they're using it. So they're filling up and filling up and filling up with sugar. When they get full and they say, no, we've reached full. If you're filling your car up with gas, when it gets to full and that thing just automatically shuts off, you don't want to start pulling that trigger again and putting more gas in your car, because it's going to start squirting out at you. You once it's full, it's full. You can't put any more in there. And that's the way your cells are. Your cells fill up with sugar. They've got all the gas they want, and they got plenty to burn. So they stop. It goes click, and just like the gas pump shuts off, these insulin receptors shut off. So then they're not taking in any more sugar. They're full. So when they're full, then the sugar comes in and goes, oh, can't go in there, can't go in there, can't go in anywhere. So what happens? The blood sugar starts going up. So when the blood sugar starts going up, that means you are far advanced. That's why prediabetes is still a high risk for death, because that means your cells are full. And with prediabetes, your blood sugar is already starting to go up. It's not going up very high yet, but it's still going up. And then the cells are not using enough of the sugar that's in them. So the average blood sugar, which is the hemoglobin A1C, is still high. So when you get high enough, then that is type 2 diabetes. And you don't have to have the symptoms of like urinating frequently to have type 2. You could just have high blood sugar and a high hemoglobin A1C. So if your blood sugar is over 150, your hemoglobin A1C is over 6.5, you've got diabetes.
I know there's a lot of questions coming in here because I mentioned avoiding the taste of sweet. So we have a lot of new people here. And so we've opened up a really big can of worms, which maybe we will dig into. Well, we're going to do it now. Well, let's just do it now. So if you're someone who has type 2, one of the options, of course, is the diabetes solution kit to help reverse your type 2. Many, even on this webinar right now, have done that and done that well with the diabetes solution kit. And so the program is broken into 3 phases. The first phase is a low carb type of diet. And in that, you are not having sweet things. And yes, that does mean fruit. Fruit is a sweet thing. There are some berries and stuff that don't have a lot of carbs, of course. But just like Dr. Saunders said, I know someone had said, well, then should I drink regular soda instead of diet if the sweeteners are bad? And what do you have to say to that, Dr. Saunders?
Oh, well, the sugar is still an issue. I mean,
Yeah.
it's still going to raise your insulin levels and make you insulin resistant. And remember the cell is full of glucose, and so adding regular sugar is going to add more glucose, and that's going to gum up the works. So no,
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend any soda at all.
Yeah. And you'll learn that in the diabetes solution kit as you go through it. Really, what that low carb diet looks like. We recommend 20 net grams of carbs per day. And so you'll find that you don't really want to have a whole can of soda because that's going to be all your carbs for the entire day. So you won't be able to eat anything else anyway. But lots of good information in there. And we go through that a lot on these webinars as well. But really good questions. I know that you guys are new, and so you probably aren't familiar with that. So I just wanted to touch base on that really quick. Let's dive in then to what type 1 diabetes is.
So type 1 diabetes is unfortunately has the same name because the blood sugar goes up. But in type 1, it's the opposite problem. So whereas, remember, in type 2, the cells are completely filled up with sugar, so they block the insulin receptors. So glucose and insulin are both elevated in the sugar. Type 1 is the opposite in that you have a cell with no sugar in it, and you have no insulin to get the glucose into the cell. And so the cells are empty and the cells are starving to death because they can't get any glucose. And so a type 1 is where the pancreas doesn't make insulin. And insulin is required to get glucose into cells, some cells. And so if you don't have glucose, if you don't have insulin getting the glucose into the cell, then you don't have energy. If you don't have glucose in the cell, the cell doesn't have energy and it dies. And so people with type 1 diabetes, they can eat as much as they want and they're starving to death as they're eating everything on their plate. They're starving to death because they can't get any of that glucose into the cells. So type 1 is a very different illness, and it requires people to get injections of insulin. so that they can get glucose into the cells and amino acids into the cells so they can have normal function of their cells. Whereas type 2 is the opposite. It has too much insulin and too much glucose.
I like how you always say type 2 is too much. That's how you can remember. Um, when was insulin invented? Because I mean, if you were diagnosed with type 1, which I'm sure they didn't call it that many years ago, that was probably that was a death sentence. What could you do?
Yeah, people died from that. It was called consumption. There were a lot of different things that were called consumption. Anybody that wasted away and gradually died. So it could have been cancer, tuberculosis, infectious
Mm,
diseases, or diabetes. And so if they were peeing a lot and the pee tasted sweet, the doctor would actually taste it. Yeah, that's sweet. That's diabetes mellitus.
that's how
Uh,
Dr. Saunders tests in his office, you guys.
oh yeah, everyone. Yeah, everyone that comes in, I taste their pee. There were famous people. Who was it? Henry Ford drank his own pee, and I've heard of other people doing it. Anyway, the point is that the type 1 would they would urinate out all their sugar and their cells wouldn't have any.
Wow. Hmm. Okay. So we talk a lot about natural things here. Dr. Saunders is a medical doctor. He is not your doctor, so we do ask that you consult with your healthcare provider before you implement any of the things that we talk about here today. We talk a lot about natural ways, easy ways, simple ways to address major health things. And I love that Dr. Saunders likes to get to the root cause of things, often recommending changes through diet, lifestyle, fasting, rest, those types of things. But also, he's a medical doctor. And so there are some beautiful things in the medical world as well. Insulin would be one of them. And so I like this webinar because we mostly talk more natural things, but we do talk about medicine as well. So let's see. I wanted to look into some of these questions here. Okay, I think I already read that one. Oh, maybe not. Eric said, I can't figure out. I either read this to myself or out loud, so let me know. Eric said, I can't figure out why my blood sugar continues to remain high. I'm on 3 diabetic meds, and I'm still seeing numbers in the 200s when I wake up. My doc's putting me on Ozempic to try to get my numbers under control. It's my first time here.
Yeah. You read that, but
I
we
did
didn't
read
we
it.
didn't
Okay.
we didn't address it actually.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so that's okay. So the medications are not helpful because they make you more insulin resistant. So the reason they don't work is because they raise insulin levels. But if your cell is completely full, you can have all the insulin you want. It's not going to get any more glucose into your cells. So the medications are useless. So that's what you found out. So what's the next step? The next step is to get that diabetes solution kit and go through the process. Just start on page 1, fill out all the questionnaires. What is your why? Why are you doing this? What is your purpose? And how are you going to do it? And what is it going to take? And is sacrifice worth it? And all that stuff. And then you get to the phase 1 of the program, and you'll be all set. You'll be all ready to go, and you'll be okay. I'm ready to do this. And so when I did it, I have to try out everything I recommend to other people. So when I did it, I said, okay, I'm going to start this program. And it was Leslie and I actually, we discussed it. Hey, we've never done this, so we're going to do it. So the day after we talked about it on the webinar, I went to the store and just pushed the cart through the shopping center, through the grocery store. And I looked at how many, and I have my phone. How many carbs are in jicama? Oh, jicama? Yeah, I could eat so I allow up to 4 carbs because I'm going to have like 5 servings a day of carbs. So keeping it under 20. How many nuts can I have? How many almonds can I have on keeping it under 20? How much of this and how much of that? As you know, I'm just going on my phone. How many carbs are in carrots? I was surprised. I thought carrots were pure carbohydrate. They're not, and I could actually eat a whole carrot and still keep it under 20 carbs easily because the carrot only has 4. So So you buy everything that you can. And I go, I saw the shrimp there, and I go, oh, you know what? I haven't had shrimp in a long time. And I get bell peppers. I can make shrimp fajitas, onions and bell peppers and shrimp, and spice it all up and make it good. And I put cheese on it, and no tortillas, no beans, because that would just throw me over the card edge, right? So I made stuff that I could eat, and for 3 months I was on that program, and it was hard at first, but then after a while it's like kind of automatic, and you make your 3 egg omelet in the morning. It's good.
We do get kind of food addicted. We get
Yeah,
addicted to certain foods and certain things. We have memories with food, and food is
yeah,
entertainment, and there's so much emotional stuff with food that it can be difficult. I will say, and we hear this from other people too, this might not be easy, but it will be the most simple plan that you ever do. It's
it's really
really,
it's really simple.
it is. It really is. It is not hard. If you're someone I have a lot of people who just said, well, you laid it out for me and I just did exactly what you said and it was simple. It's when we let our mind get in the way from doing things that we start to get into problems. So I always tell the story about when I did like this 8-day fast. And on day 3, I was calling Dr. Saunders, telling him, I think it's time for me to be done. I don't need to go any further. And he was like, no, you need to keep going. You need to keep going. And boy, your mind can play tricks on you. Just tells you don't need to do things. So it's good to have an accountability partner in those types of things too. So that's also why we have our Barton Webinar Facebook group. Join that group. If you're just starting, your journey, maybe you're doing the diabetes solution kit, post in that group daily. You'll get responses from other people who are going along on that journey as well. And comment on people's posts, encourage them. There's a lot of, that's why we created that community, is for you guys to engage with each other in there. So, okay, let's go on to some more questions. Oh boy, we got lots of questions. I better hurry up. Okay. Um, KJ says, I seem to be able to handle fresh berries without affecting my blood glucose level, and I'm moving out of phase 1 and into phase 2. Awesome.
Good work. Good work. So yeah, berries tend to be low in sugar, and most people tolerate them well. When I was on the keto diet, I ate berries, and I could have a few berries, and it was great.
Yep. Andy said, I recently had a heart echo stress test, and the cardiologist reviewed my lab tests and recommended, uh-oh, I gotta scroll. Where's the rest of it? It's a mystery. Here it is. Instead of taking valsartan, 160, 25 milligrams, take valsartan 160 milligrams and Norvasac 2.5 milligrams to help reduce more frequent urinations. Also take Crestor 10 milligrams to manage high cholesterol. Does Dr. Saunders have any comments on this recommendation?
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So none of those medications address the issue. So it's kind of like putting a band-aid over a skin cancer. If you have a skin cancer and you went to a dermatologist and they goes, yeah, that could be a skin cancer. Let me put a band-aid over it. Okay, now just keep a band-aid on there all the time, and you'll never know that you had skin cancer. What's going to happen? Well, the skin cancer is going to grow, and it's going to get bigger, and it's going to get worse. That's exactly what happens with all those medications. So you have heart disease, and one of the symptoms is having high blood pressure, and another symptom is having high cholesterol or high triglycerides. So they put you on one medication to stop one symptom and one medication to stop another symptom. And the high blood sugar, they give you another medication to stop that symptom. And none of it addresses the problem. So your metabolic problem of your glucose filling up your cells, and your liver cell, your liver, you have fatty liver, and you're insulin resistant, and none of this addresses the insulin resistance. So you end up getting worse and worse and worse until you go blind and get Alzheimer's and get a foot chopped off, or lose your kidneys, and or have a heart attack. And they go, well, yeah, it happens. Yeah, even on the medication. Well, yeah, always on the medication. that's,
Yeah.
that's that's when it happens. So the answer to your problem is not the medication. It's not putting the band-aid over the cancer. You have to find out why. Why do you have high blood pressure? Is your cholesterol elevated? Do you have insulin resistance? And then deal with the why. And once you deal with that, then your blood pressure comes down to normal, and not have insulin, and then you don't need any medication because everything becomes normal.
Okay. Gary said, what is the difference between berberine and dihydroberberine?
Um, Dihydroberberine has water essentially attached to it. It's um, uh, and I don't. Your question is there some different effect of berberine and dihydroberberine? And my answer is I don't know. I don't know if dihydroberberine is of any greater benefit than the berberine. Berberine is an extract from a lot of different plants. It's not just, there's not a berberine tree. Um, it's a chemical, and then dihydroberberine has essentially water attached to the molecule. But I don't know if it's more effective or what the difference is.
Rayanne said, I had my doctor appointment today. My A1C is 6.6, and my doc said I was the healthiest sick person he had ever met. He tried pushing the meds again, but I pushed back and said that I was doing well without the meds. Why would I start taking them again? He then said he couldn't argue with my results and told me to keep up the good work. I'm a little perturbed that he's still pushing meds. Once I get my A1C under 6, I may not be going back to him. I'll get my own blood work and fast accordingly.
Good work, Ryan. That's awesome. Okay, so that little being a little perturbed because they're pushing meds. For heaven's sakes, you're going to a medical doctor. If you go to a medical doctor, what are they going to offer? Medicine, drugs, prescription drugs, patent medicine. That's what they do. That's all they do. They don't know anything else. And so, if you went to a chiropractor, would you get perturbed if they recommended that you get your back adjusted? Or if you went to a acupuncturist, would you be perturbed that they recommend you get poked with needles all over the place? No, that's what they do. So you know what? That's you have to expect that.
Okay. Anonymous said, I'm unable to do the 3-day fast as much as I would love to. My hemoglobin is 6, or my A1C. AM glucose is mostly between 88 to 98. Insulin sensitivity 7, according to the LabCorp, which is within normal reference range. Lost approximately 30 pounds since January last year on phase 1 of the diabetes solution kit. I have advanced glaucoma. When I wake up, although my vision is fairly clear and I decide to start a fast, the hungrier I get, the more blurred my vision gets. Sometimes eating protein when I wake up seems to improve my vision. Later in the day, if I'm hungry, I may have a skipped heartbeat, which I correct immediately with a Valsalva manure or breathing exercise. I'm better off detoxifying my liver with an organic dandelion root tea fast instead of a complete dry fast, or is there a potential for increased toxicity doing dandelion tea exclusively throughout the day? My blood sugars are in the low 100s, below 113 after I eat.
Well, I think the dandelion tea would be fine. I don't see any issues with that at all. Your numbers are like borderline. They're not really bad, and so they can be improved with fasting. And if you did dandelion tea only, you're not going to get a lot of carbs from that. But then that doesn't add anything that you don't need. It's not going to make you worse, like food will. So yeah, I think that's great. Do the dandelion tea.
Okay. Hello, Diane. First time here from Ontario. Bertha's here from Maryland. Eric says, I just purchased the diabetes detox course or the diabetes solution kit. Not sure how to use it or where to get started on my path away from being diabetic. I'm sick of it. I'm taking too many meds and I'm getting little to no results. We maybe already addressed this, but
Yeah, yeah. You know what? Just start. Just don't even worry about the medications. That's just like, I don't know. It's just something that somebody else does for you because that's all they know how to do. do what works for you, and that is start on the phase one of the program and just do the diabetes solution kit. That would work great.
Let's see. Is okay, so KJ had said, is that what Healthy Gut Restore addresses? We were talking about gut health.
Yeah, healthy gut restore is for people that don't make enough enzymes, and so it's a prebiotic probiotic enzyme combination. And um, for some people, it's really good. So I've had people who have been on all kinds of other like enzyme supplements and intestinal supplements, probiotics and stuff, and I've had several of my own patients say that they did better on healthy gut restore than the others than anything else that they've tried.
Let's see here. I did that one. Eric had said, he's new, just getting started with the diabetes solution kit. My A1C is 8.8 as of January. So how do we get our sugar levels under control, which you had addressed already? So, Abla says, I'm not on any medication. Thank God. I hardly go to the doctor. Okay, let me just see here. David said my A1C was 12 and now down to 10. I do need some advice to get it lower. I'm currently taking Synachroma and Nervala instead of 1,000 milligrams of metformin.
Okay, so 12 to 10 is wonderful. That's a great start, but 10 is still really high. So, what would you do? Man, the only thing that you can do is improve your insulin sensitivity. So, start on the diabetes solution kit and go through step one and then go into phase one and just start the diet. And that's the way to do this. It's not taking a supplement. Yeah, fine, the supplements worked better than the medications. Great, I appreciate that. But it's not the answer. It's not the solution to your problem. The solution is still doing the program.
Good question here from Abla. Doesn't the brain need sugar?
Yeah, that's a really good question. No. Well, yes. Yes and no. Um, so the brain can't use fat for energy, and that's why they say, okay, you have to eat sugar for your brain to work. But when you are using fat for energy instead of sugar, then your liver makes something called ketones. And these ketones do not require insulin to get into the cells, nerve cells. So they go right through, they just go right in and they provide energy for the nerve cells. So whereas insulin resistance causes people to not be able to get enough energy into their nerve cells, if you go on a keto diet, then you go off all sugar, then your liver makes ketones, and then your brain gets enough energy from the ketones.
Okay. Tom says, I've started on a low carb diet, less than 30 total, not net, and lost a little over 20 pounds in less than 45 days. My problem is my blood sugar. I was on 1 milligram of Ozempic and 10 milligrams of glipizide 2 times a day. The endocrinologist removed the glipizide at the beginning so I didn't have hyperglycemia. Well, my blood sugar runs 180 to 220 and higher after exercise. The endocrinologist wanted to raise the Ozempic to 2 milligrams. My PP said no because of risk of pancreatitis. I see my PP and was wondering if you have any suggestions I could ask to try other than going back to glipizide. I have to be on another call for work, but I hope you answer. This is recorded too.
Okay, so both glipizide and Ozempic cause insulin resistance. So it's very important that instead of doing those, that you do the diabetes solution kit and do phase one of the program. So if you're doing phase one, then you're going to get the insulin sensitivity that you need, so things will start working again, and your blood sugar will be able to go down, your glucose will go down to a normal level. So if your blood glucose is in the 200s on the medications, that means you're really resistant, because what the medications do is increase insulin, and then your cells are completely full and they're blocked insulin. So more insulin is not going to put more glucose into the cell, and that's why it's not working. So you still have to stop eating glucose. So that's phase one of the program. And then exercise to use up all of that glucose that's been stored in the cells.
Jacket says, do apples and oranges do the same thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Apples and oranges are also sugar.
Yeah.
they're they're really high in sugar. You know what's interesting? I was talking with my mom. My mom's 87 years old.
Mm.
And so we talk about, the old days versus today. And she said, as time goes on, back in the old days, we would pick the neighbor's fruit. Like, they had apples, and they were these little, and they were kind of sour. They were actually really sour. They did have some sugar in them, but apples were, a small kind of sour fruit. Most berries were kind of small and sour. And so the breeding of these fruits have become, so much that they've increased the amount of sugar that the fruits make. And so that now their apples are like really big and super sweet. And they don't make the acids that cause the sourness anymore, because it's been bred out of them.
Mm.
So we have these high sugar fruits, whereas in the old days, they didn't really have high sugar fruits.
Wow.
So if you've ever eaten like blueberries, you get a sweet one and then you get a sour one, and then you get a sweet one and then you get a sour one. That's kind of the way human beings have had fruit for forever, up until the um, modern farming methods.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, Christopher says the leaders of our Zoe project here in the UK suggest that we try to eat 30 to 40 different vegetables each week to include herbs, spices, etc. And coffee is one, the coffee bean. Do you agree with this?
Yeah, sure. Actually, there's a book that I read that I recommend to people. It's called Fiber Fueled. The author is Dr. Will Bulsheviks, and he wrote a book about this. He's a gastroenterologist, and he helps people with colitis, Crohn's disease. And he says, people get better by eating a wide variety of fiber instead of just one type of fiber.
Yeah. All right. Christopher also says I should add that there are some of your American words I don't understand. And why don't you
Yeah.
use
SI
SI
unit.
units?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the rest of the world. I don't understand your figures.
Okay, I'm sorry. People in Canada and other parts of the world, most of the world, as a matter of fact, they use SI units. And so, gosh, equivalents. We should have some equivalents to put up there.
Yeah,
So,
you're right.
yeah. So if you had a specific one like hemoglobin A1C, I think everybody uses the same numbers for that. But blood glucose, if you're in Canada, your average should be between 4 and 5, or in the UK, or anywhere else in the world, your numbers should be between 4 and 5. So 4 point something is an optimal range for your blood glucose. Whereas in the United States, we would look between 70 and 90 for that same optimal range.
Let's see. Bill says, does the fat in nuts gum up your cells so insulin does not work? Why is low-fat Greek yogurt off for phase one? A third of a cup has 3 grams of carbs.
Yeah, there's nothing about yogurt. Okay, so first of all, your first question is fat. Does it gum up the works? No, it doesn't. But the nuts do have a lot of omega-6 oils, so it's better to eat omega-3 oils, flax seeds, chia seeds, fish, and avoid as much as you can of the corn oil, soy, canola oil, safflower, sunflower, all those oils. Seed oils have a lot of omega-6 and they cause inflammation. They tend to cause worse diabetes. So diabetes can be improved. And there's been studies on this where all they did, nothing else, no medications or anything different. They just gave omega-3 oils, fish oil or cod liver oil to diabetics, and their blood sugars improved, their hemoglobin A1C came down. So that's kind of where it is. The nuts and seeds, they're high in omega-6. Other than that, no, they don't gum up the works, so to speak. They just make more inflammation.
Okay. Beverly says if you cut out all sweet tastes, it only takes a week or two to lose all those cravings. I exempt whole fruits because of vitamins, minerals, and fiber, but I only eat them with a protein source. For example, a 1 ounce wedge of cheese with an apple or pear, or berries with a little whole milk.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. She's got a good point there.
Let me see here. Okay. Anonymous says, my HDL is 50 and the LDL is 108. My cardiologist wants it under 100 and with diet and exercise. What is the best diet to follow and supplements? My A1C is down to 5.8. I'm a 71-year-old female. Also, a friend took atorvastatin for high cholesterol and it started a chronic cough, and she's now on an inhaler. Is there a safer statin drug to take? Thanks so much.
Okay, so first of all, let's look at the numbers. Your HDL you said was 50. LDL is over 100, 108. So the optimum LDL is over 150. So your LDL is a little bit too low. Your cardiologist is thinking is just narrowly focused on the heart and doesn't look at the big picture. Your risk of dying is actually increased by lowering your LDL. So don't even think about that. And then the HDL of 50 is actually pretty good. You don't say what your total cholesterol is. And so there's a ratio there. Total cholesterol to HDL should be around 3 point something, between 3 and 4. That's a great place for it to be. And then your triglycerides are important too. If your triglycerides are over 100, that's an indication that you have insulin resistance. So you want the triglycerides and the HDL to be about the same. You can have as much as twice as much triglycerides as HDL. So if your triglycerides were 100, you would be in the okay range. And the optimum range is to have your triglycerides around 50. So then you said your hemoglobin A1C was what, 5.8? And that is pre-diabetes, and like I said, that's double the risk of death compared to 5.4. So go on phase 1 of the program. Don't take any of those medications. Go on phase 1 of the program, and improve your insulin sensitivity. That's going to be the most important thing.
Okay. Last question here. Steven said, I'm diabetic. Based on my blood test, my doctor has made an appointment with a doctor of nephrology. He thinks I may have kidney disease. Is this a result of diabetes? I've been on Synachroma for a year. I have lost 65 pounds.
Wow, Steven, that's awesome. Okay, so anyone with insulin resistance can get kidney disease. So that's kind of important. Anyone with type 1 diabetes can get kidney disease too, for a different reason. And that's, you can't get glucose into the cells. And so the kidneys are very sensitive to that because they don't store glucose. Whereas like muscle cells, you don't lose those really because you store energy in those. Liver cells, you store them in those. So nobody loses their liver. So yes, kidney disease is important. So the number to look at is the estimated glomerular filtration rate, EGFR, which is going to be found on every metabolic panel that they do, and they're going to do those frequently. So if your EGFR is greater than 60, then you have good functioning kidneys. If it's less than 60, if it's close to that, like in the 50s, then it's borderline kidney function. If it's getting down to the 20s, that's serious loss of kidney function. So that's the one number you can look at to assess whether your kidneys are functioning or not.
Okay. I'm gonna ask, or just this last thing I want to just mention because it's really good from Gary. If you're able to get your A1C down to 5, you are not really cured of diabetes, such that you can eat like someone who is not diabetic. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a reason you had diabetes in the first place. And whatever that reason is, like for me, for example, I have a genetic weakness for not being able to use carbs very efficiently. So I am at the highest genetic risk for diabetes. And I've been monitoring it for a long time. And I've never gotten to diabetes. Uh, but it's really easy to get insulin resistant. So yeah, you know what? I'm fasting 3 days once a month, and I'm avoiding carbohydrates, and I don't eat, cereal and ice cream and candy and all the things that are offered to me. Um, it's just that's the way I have to live. So yes, that's a really really good point that we make at the end of the diabetes solution kit. When you get there, you say, um, "No, you're not cured in the sense that you could eat anything you want and not get diabetes again." No, there's a reason you got it in the first place, and so stick with the program.
Okay. All right. That is it for today, Dr. Saunders. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow.
All right, hasta mañana.
I'm going to see if there's any more questions on here that I might be able to help with. So ideally, I saw someone asked about this. We do prefer that you ask your questions in the Q&A. We had a lot of new people on today, so I did get some of them out of the chat. But I want to make sure, let's see, best time to eat fruit if you're type 2 diabetic is to not, at least not while you're on phase 1. Um, Lisa's wondering, she's on phase 3. I think you're going to get different information from Dr. Saunders versus most other people, honestly. But the beautiful thing is if you're on phase 3 already, Lisa, and your dietitian is telling you to do something, you can try that. Definitely try that, and see how it goes. You'll know how to monitor your blood sugars now. You can always go back to phase 1 and do that. That's a lot of carbs. If you're adding good carbs, see how it affects you. Is berberine better than metformin? And if yes, what dosage should I take? I think we address that on some webinars. Sometimes there are a lot of people who use berberine instead of metformin. Um, I'm not exactly sure on the dosing for that, but I know a lot of people do it. There are low carb or zero carb tortillas nowadays. You could use that with your fajitas. You could. Um, they often are not made with good ingredients. That's the thing that we kind of steer away from a little bit. The more you can get to whole foods, the better. But if you want to do that, you sure can. Just count your carbs. Does cooking a vegetable raise the carb or sugar count? Ooh, I don't think so. Um, so is a teaspoon of raw oatmeal cooked a problem? You just have to count your carbs. That's the biggest issue. If you're doing the diabetes solution kit, count your carbs. So oatmeal does have a lot of carbs, so you're going to want to count that. Okay, some of these are more medical that I won't be able to answer. Hmm. Okay, so if you guys want to find more information about these webinars, go to bartonwebinar.com. Use code webinar25. You'll save 25% on any of the products that you see there. But you'll also find a link to our YouTube channel. And so go there, subscribe. You'll find all of these videos, all of these webinars are there, so you can watch all the replays, including today's. It's live right now. So let's see. Yep, the Diabetes Solution Kit is also on that website, bartonwebinar.com. I posted that in the chat. Okay. Anything else here? Yes, there will still be a live tomorrow. Home Cures That Work webinar will be tomorrow. It'll be our last Thursday. We're going to combine the webinars and do them all on Wednesdays moving forward. Okay. Lots of questions about apples. I see now, lots of fruit questions, um, oatmeal. These things in general aren't bad for you. If you're someone who is dealing with type 2, you want to avoid sweets and you want to eat low carb. And so if you decide that you want to eat oatmeal for breakfast, that's going to, and you're doing the diabetes solution kit, that's probably going to take up most of your carbs for the entire day. So probably not worth it unless you just want to eat one meal for the whole day, right? Same with apples. Yes, they're great, but they're sweet. And so your body may respond um, not so great if you are battling type 2 diabetes. So not recommended. Let me see. What else can I tell you? Okay, so if you're wanting, again, go to bartonwebinar.com. You will find a link to our YouTube channel. Okay? And then if you want the diabetes solution kit, that'll tell you all the foods that you can have and what Dr. Saunders recommends. You can find that at bartonwebinar.com as well. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you guys. We'll see you tomorrow and come back with all of your questions.